Hello, Lizzie here. Today we're going to talk about Oogie, and Oogie is my new hat pattern and she's absolutely gorgeous and I think you're going to love her. She's actually a download from my website lizzycurtis.com. She's an average size head, and obviously in the pattern you'll get all the details of sizes so you can decide whether it's the hat for you. It's actually a style that could be used all year round, and as we work through the pattern and make it up, which is super easy, I'll tell you what other things you can do to make it personal for you. So this is Oogie. So the idea is that you're getting 6 pieces, 6 segments if you like, to make the outside, and 6 segments you're going to cut out for the inside. Now you can, if you're really clever, get all of these pieces out on a fat quarter. So you can have a fat quarter for the outside and a fat quarter for the lining. And in the pattern I actually show you the layout, and this is for non-directional fabric. So everything else that you would need to know for directional fabric is written down in the pattern as well. So you're going to be cutting out 6 pieces of the template for the outer, 6 pieces for the lining. Now I'm going to make out the outer. I've already done the lining. I'll just put Oogie just there. And it's so easy. Each piece, the lining and the outer, is actually stabilised with a medium weight stabiliser or interfacing. So you might have a favourite that you use. I always use Vaseline H250. So starting at the point, I'm using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm literally going to stitch 2 pieces together. And obviously they fit beautifully. And the great thing about this hat is it's reversible. So think about your lining, because you may want something really sensible on the outside and quirky on the inside, or vice versa. So there's 2 pieces put together, really simply. We're going to do 2 lots of 3 and then join those together. Now once you get to this stage where you've just joined the 2, I want you to push that seam over, and it's going over to my left. So if I hold it that way, you'll be able to see that it's going over that way, and you can see the point of that last piece we put on. Now this is really important, because when we place the 3rd piece over the top, that point goes right over the points that's facing to the left. So if I hold it really still there, we'll be able to see there's the point going over there of that piece of fabric, and this point here goes straight over the top, and that gives you then a lovely layered look. And we're going to start stitching just at that 1/4 inch mark there, and you'll get the perfect seam just when you're doing patchwork, and you'll see that sort of perfect seam when you've put perhaps triangles together and things like that. This is what you're going to get with Oogie. So the 3rd piece going on now. And once we've put these 3 pieces together, we're going to press that. So I've just noticed my interfacing hasn't quite stuck, so I need to do that, just make it neat. Now if we look at the top of that, and hopefully you'll be able to see that you've got that lovely cross piece there where the seams meet, and where that little point is there, that's where you're going to join those 2 together, those 2 halves together, and that should be really accurate there. And I'm going to show you a little technique of how to make sure that is accurate when you put them together. So that's our first 3 pieces done. So let's quickly do the second 3 pieces. So points together, and I always start from the point. Now the other thing about Oogie is that she is undoubtedly a fantastic summer hat, maybe one that you'd use in the garden, on holiday. But actually, think about making her, or him, in tweed. And then instead of stabiliser, use wadding, or like a batting. So again, I've pointed that point over to the left, that under seam, and I'm matching my points up. And just following those 2 down. They fit obviously absolutely beautifully. And I think you're going to make a lot of these because they look so pretty. So I'll just pop my iron on because what I want to do while I've got the opportunity is just to iron those two seams so they're nice and flat. And you can do this afterwards, and I'll show you how to do that. Just give that a little press, push those seams out. And to be honest, by the time you've done this and pop this in your handbag, maybe you're going to take it away. Maybe you're thinking it might rain, or maybe it's going to be really hot sunshine, and you can pop it in your bag ready for later. Just make sure that's interfacing is pressed down nicely. There we go. I'm sure that's fine. So let's just pop that to one side. Okay, so now we've got our two halves, and if you remember when we looked at this just before, if I open it up again, we've got that lovely point just there of where the seams meet. So what you're going to do is get a pin, okay, and you're going to pop the pin through one half. We'll do right sides together, that's always a good idea. So I'll just get the wrong side facing me. You're going to put the pin through that little seam there, and you can see quite naturally how that looks. There we go. And all I'm going to do is get the pin and pop it through the other side, right where that point is. And you might want to move your seams around to make sure that they're actually kind of nesting. I'm happy with that. There we go. And just wriggle that pin, and that'll make sure that those 2 points are absolutely on top of each other. I'm just going to pin that together. That's all I'm going to do. And then I'm going to stitch from here all the way around to the other side. Now you may want to use your quilting clips or your pins to hold that together, but I'm just going to stitch all the way around. If you start off correctly at this end, you should end up correct at the other end. Just make sure your shapes fit beautifully. So don't think this is just for summer. I think there's a lot of things you can do with this. How about making it in like an oilcloth material? That really would be for the rainy weather. So just make sure when you stitch over that intersection that you're going straight over that point, and that will give you that perfect finish. So a quick mention about my Gold Club. If you haven't joined already, there's no time like the present. Just pop to my website, find the link that says Gold Members Sign Up here, and then you have access to my Facebook weekly events, which is absolutely amazing. My girls love it. And of course you get the free patterns as well. So if you want more information, there is actually a video on YouTube that you can have a little look at. And just bring the seams together right down to the other end. There we go. Just move that across. There we go. And if you need to trim away, then trim away. Okay, so there is the outside of our hat. And like I say, you can give it a press. And what I do is, let me just cut this thread because I've seen that all the way through the video, and I'm now going to cut it. There we go, gone. So what you can do now is get your iron either inside the lining part here where your stabilizer is and push those seams nice and flat, or have it as it was before. Sometimes interfacing can burn if you're not careful. It's just get your ironing mat and just go in there and smooth all those seams down. Okay, so we're ready to put both pieces together, and here's my lining. This fabric is actually brand new fabric now, and it's by Beth Studley, and I think Macawa make it, so it's worth looking out for. It's so pretty. So let's just turn the seams over. Now what I'm going to do is on one of the seams, and you'll see it here, is that I've just pressed between the gussets, if you like, the pieces, a 1/4 inch seam allowance down. So I've turned that already down, and that's going to be our turning gap. And because I've already pressed it down, when we turn it through, it'll give me the perfect edge to top stitch, because obviously it's a curve, so we have to be careful with our curves. So I'm going to do the same again. It doesn't matter which segment you use, just pick one and then just turn it back a 1/4 inch. When we go to stitch it now, we'll start at the seam and we'll just push that folded piece out of the way. There we go. So I've literally just pressed that over a 1/4 inch. You can just see it there. So just get the machine in. Now this is where you might definitely want to clip it together or pin it together. So just find your 2 pressed seams. Where are they? Here they go. And just make sure that your 2 pressed seams where you've pressed that 1/4 inch out are facing each other and on top of each other, so they're both the right place for the turning. And then you might want to sort of just go round it and put some quilting clips in. I don't think I'll bother, but I'll match the seams as I go as best I can. So we'll just pop it out. So we'll start off at the seam. I'll open up that 1/4 inch again, so it's flat. And like I say, it's a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And you'll see as we go round what that's going to look like. There we go. Let's just get that straight under there. Now, because we've got the stabiliser on both fabrics, they won't stretch. So although with the pattern, if you cut it out on a fat quarter, they're not all going to lie in the same direction, which if you were a dressmaker, you'd be in serious bother. But because they've got stabiliser on, if there is any bias, it won't matter, because you've stabilised that fabric, it's not going to stretch. So we're just going all the way around the brim, just whiz round, making sure that you're trying to meet the seams as best you can. You might find there's a little bit of difference because we've hand cut these. We haven't done this by machine, have we? So forgive yourself if they don't quite meet up by 1 millimetre or 2. Nobody's going to check, and if they do, they're not your friend. So all the way around. So we're just coming back to that seam now. Difficult for you to see, I know. Let's just turn that back. So this is our folded edges here. That's on my lining, nice and spotty. And so that's the seam we started at. So I'm going to finish at the opposite seam, the one that's facing it. So it gives you a whole section. And just a back stitch. Do a back stitch because it's a strengthening stitch. So we're just going to turn it right side out. Now don't forget, this whole brim is curved. So when you do turn it out, I want you to get those curves really, really neat. And just push them out. And don't worry that we've got 2 halves here, outside, inside. But just take that opportunity now just to go, it's almost like finger pressing. You're just going to go around the outside, just pushing those curves out. It'll take a minute to do that. And it's worth it. It's worth it. So just push it out, finger press it, split those seams open. Well, not split it open, but make sure you haven't got any straight pieces. It's all curves. Get your nail in there, your thumb. If you've got a tool that you like to use, get that in there as well. And just push that seam. I'm fairly happy with that now. Doesn't take long. So now pop your lining to the inside, but don't forget this could be the outer fabric and this could be the lining. It's entirely up to you. You can choose, can't you? So there we are. Now the finishing touch to this, of course, is a top stitch. And so you're going to top stitch not quite a 1/4 inch because we want to catch. Do you remember the turning gap? Well, now it's beautifully pressed, it'll just go together fabulously, one on top of each other, and you're just going to stitch it. So it's just less than 1/4 inch. I'm going to pop that under my machine. And this is where, if you wanted to, you could lengthen your stitch. It's quite nice to, your top stitching is a little bit longer than your regular stitch, perhaps a 3. I haven't altered mine, just for speed, but you could yours. Just make your way around, just work those seams if you need to. Tuck anything in here like this is just popping out a little bit. And just go all the way around, making sure that lovely curved seam is nice and straight and flat. Just manoeuvre it, because if you don't, you might see some of the outer fabric on the lining and vice versa. So you want them sitting right on top of each other. And once you've done all this, quick press if you want. But quite honestly, you're going to wear it straight away, I'm sure. Or pop it in your bag. You could fold it up and pop it into your bag. Ready. There's no need to clip any of the seams either. The curves are all very gentle. Nothing extreme about this whatsoever. And just work your way around. There we go. Just coming around to that last little bit there. One more gusset to go. Don't have to do a back stitch on a top stitch, but it's habit, isn't it? But even one stitch is enough. Just cut your threads, make sure everything's nice and neat. And there we are. And of course you could get your iron in there now and really give that a good press. And sometimes finger pressing is actually enough. But there we are. She's lovely. She's really lovely. And actually, she matches my bag behind me there. That's Augusta. And this is Augie. And I'm sure you will make loads.